Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a full review on this new palette from Natasha Denona. This is the I Need a Nude palette. I picked this up and I have been playing with it off and on for I think for the last week or so. I got the palette and then I got sick. So I went to the grocery store and the kid at the checkout, he was kind of sniffling. You know how that is? You can kind of tell when you look at somebody and they don't feel very good. I should have come home and like completely scrubbed down, but I got caught up in unloading my groceries and fixing taco soup for my daughter because she was coming to visit, and I didn't. The next day I woke up and I was sick for the next couple of days. I'm finally better, but then I had company over the weekend and I just wasn't able to film. But here I am, I'm back. I have so many things to catch up on. Oh my gosh. But the first thing I wanted to get to is this new palette from Natasha Denona. So in the video, I'm going to be doing 3 eyeshadow looks, and I'm also going to be sharing tons and tons of swatches and comparisons, just so that you guys can see how this palette compares to other palettes that are out in the market and in our collection. Now, this palette is available at multiple retailers. It retails for $69. But if you order it on the Natasha Denona website, they were kind enough to offer me a discount code for me and my followers to use. It is the code TaraLynn, and you will save 15% off your entire purchase. The discount code is not affiliated, but the link to the website is affiliated. So just full transparency. I'm just happy that they gave me a code. I'm very grateful because I always love saving money. I love discount codes, especially on new releases. Let's go ahead and jump into a few details about the palette, and then we'll jump into the tutorials. So this palette is being described as a cool toned color story featuring 15 new enchanted, muted, rosy, and nude shades. Alongside Natasha Denona's iconic formulas, the I Need a Nude palette debuts a brand new wet effect, sparkling and glossy finish formula, illuminating any shadow look with an ethereal touch of a glistening sparkle. So first up, we have the shade Ella right here in the middle. That is being described as a sparkling foiled shade. So that is a new formula. Then we have the shade Delilah right here. And Delilah is the sparkling wet effect. And then this shade right here, which is the shade Muse, that is also a sparkling foiled shade. Then we have the shade Sheen, which is a glossy wet effect. Then we have the shade Filigree, which is a sparkling foiled shade. And then down here at the bottom, we have the shade Maya, which is a sparkling wet effect. So those are the new sparkling foiled and sparkling kind of glazed like wet effect that are new and introduced in this new palette. Those shades are very similar to these shades in the Makeup by Mario. This is the Ethereal Eyes. So these 3 shadows are kind of similar to what's in this new formula from Natasha Denona. They are quite transparent in a sense that when you apply like a regular shimmer or metallic shade, it covers. So for example, this shade right here, which is Whisper, which is a metallic shade. So Whisper, you can kind of see that it completely covers my hand, right? So it has some opacity to it. It kind of has a base tone, and then it has the sparkle. But if you compare it to like Sheen or even Maya, they are more of a topper shade. So you can kind of see my skin through those 2 shades, right? So they have a tone to them, but they don't have much opacity. They're really, really finely milled, and they lay over the eye to kind of give it that wet, glossy look. But they're not a traditional foiled shadow in a sense. Like I mentioned, I've had the palette for a while. I've been playing with it off camera, and now today doing 3 looks with it. I've definitely used all of the shades at this point, and many of them multiple times. I have a lot of opinions about the palette. I'm going to save all of those thoughts for my final thoughts. But for now, we're going to go ahead and jump into the 3 eyeshadow looks that I created using the palette. Then we will get into the swatches and comparisons. And just kind of a note, when I do the swatches and comparisons, I will show 2 images of the same. One will be with no flash and the other will be with a flash. Oftentimes, a flash really helps you to see the undertones in some of these shades. Especially when they're calling this a cool tone palette. I kind of disagree. I feel like it's more of a neutral because it has a few warm shades in here. I would not say it's a full cool tone palette. And oftentimes a flash will really help you to see the undertones in some of these shadows. And you can really see if it's a warm or a neutral or a cool tone. So just kind of take note of that when we are going through the swatches and comparisons. Then once we get through those, I will go ahead and get into all of my thoughts on this palette. So let's go ahead and get into it, and I will see you guys all in my final thoughts. Let's go ahead and jump into look number 1. Okay, I'm gonna first go into the shade Tender, and I'm gonna bring that here on the outer corner. What I like about that shade is it's very buildable. So it looks quite dark in the pan and you can build quite a bit of depth with the shadow, and it's really easy to blend. It's a very soft texture, which is kind of what you want when you're working with a darker color like that. Now I'm going to take a crease brush and I'm going to go into the shade Stone. And I'm going to use Stone to kind of blend the crease. Now I'm going to take the BK Beauty 209 and I'm going to go into Silhouette and I'm going to bring it right over top. That color is nice because it's dark, but it's blendable. Okay, so now I'm gonna go directly into Delilah. This is the shade that I've been very curious about. This one right here. I'm gonna go ahead and use my Smith 253 and I'm gonna apply it dry first. So I'm going to take a fluffy brush. I'm going to dip between Mesh and Wit. So I'm going to kind of grab both of them and I'm going to sweep that right here in the crease just to bring a little bit of color to those gray tones that I've put down. Now I'm going to go into the shade Sheen and I'm going to put that right on the inner corner. I'm going to go into the shade Filigree and place it like right over top of, my camera wasn't focusing. I'm going to place that right over top of those dark colors here on the outer corner. I went ahead and threw on some concealer. I'm now going to go straight into this dark color, which is Silhouette. And I'm going to bring that right on the outer corner. I'm going to kind of blend that up. Then I'm going to take a clean brush and blend that out. Now I'm going to wipe the brush off and I'm going to go into Mesh and Wit. And then I'm going to bring that right on the center and into the inner corner. Now I'm going to go back into Sheen, this one right here. and place that on the inner corner. I think I might even bring a little bit of it up here on the brow bone. Like, why not, right? It's so pretty. Okay, so this is the final look for look number 1. I'm going to leave it here because I'm going to be wiping it off. But those shades are really pretty. And I was really impressed with the dark colors and the blendability. Sometimes when shades are really dark, it can go really bad or it can be amazing. And so far, Silhouette and Tender, those are the 2 darkest matte shades in the palette. And they're very buildable, but very blendable. And you don't get any harsh lines. You can build up dimension. And you can kind of have control over the shades, which is what I appreciate when kind of working with darker mattes. But I absolutely love the way that shade Delilah looks on the lid. It's very soft and not super shimmery. It has more of that sparkle base to it. It gives the shine to the lid without emphasizing. So it kind of gives shine to the lid without emphasizing. But so far, I love the way that this look turned out. So that's it for look number 1. Let's go ahead and jump into look number 2. This shade Travertine, I'm kind of curious about because it doesn't really have a lot going on, meaning it doesn't have a lot of opacity. So I'm really interested to see what the shade actually looks like. This is what it looks like swatched, but it doesn't have a lot to it. So I'm curious. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Smith 253 brush. I'm going to go into it dry first. And if need be, I will wet the brush or use my finger. But we're going to try the brush dry first. So I'm going to go ahead and sweep that on the lid. It's definitely, you get the best opacity by applying it with a finger. Might be one of those shades that would be good to kind of use in the crease where you can, you know, put it on a fluffy brush and kind of put it over top of mattes to kind of bring a little teeny bit of shimmer to the mattes. But as far as having a lot of opacity, as far as a lot of shimmer, a lot of shine, it doesn't really have that. But that's not a bad thing though. It's just something to take note of, right? So with that said, I am going to go into the shade Vague, this one right here. And I'm going to bring Vague in the crease. Then I'm going to go into the shade Wit and put it over top. Those 2 shades together are really pretty. Wit and Vague, really pretty. Because I mentioned that shade might be a good shade to go over top of a matte, let's try it. So I'm going to go into the shade Travertine with a blending brush. Sweep it over top. So it just gave those mattes a little bit of something, a little teeny bit of shine. Now I'm going to grab the shade Vague and I'm going to tap that into the outer corner. And then I'm going to go into the shade Tender. Place it over top. I'm going to take a tinier brush. This is the Sigma smudge brush, the E21. And I'm going to go into Silhouette, which is that darkest color. I'm going to kind of tap this into the outer corner. And then I'm going to go over top of it with the blending brush. Okay, now I want to see what that shade Ella looks like. And if it has any depth to it, because it looks kind of dark in the pan, but that doesn't mean much. So I'm going to pick that shade up with my Smith 253. And I'm going to bring that right onto the outer corner. I want something over top of travertine. So I'm going to go into Muse, which is right here. That shade is really pretty. I know these looks are kind of looking the same. I'm just kind of playing around with the palette to try to get kind of acquainted with it and get used to some of these shadows. So now I am going to go into Vague. I think I'm going to take a tiny bit of Ella and I'm going to put that on the outer corner here on the lower lash line. It's such a pretty shade. So this is the final look for look number 2, and it's really beautiful. It kind of does look a little similar to the other one, and I kind of get that, but I'm kind of playing around with each of the shades and just trying to kind of go from there, right? Trying to play with each of them and kind of get a feel for the palette, the textures, how they work, you know, all of that. So that's it for look number 2. Let's go ahead and jump into look number 3. Now, like I mentioned in the intro, I have been kind of playing around with this palette pretty much the entire week. I just haven't been able to film with it until now. The only shade that I have not used in the palette is this one down here at the bottom, which is Maya. It's a really pretty kind of frosty pink, and I'm really excited to use it. So I'm going to first grab the shade Fair. I'm going to kind of use the shade Fair as a base. You can see that it has quite a bit of pigment. Being that it is such a light shade, but it also has a really pretty, on my complexion, it has a really pretty kind of peachy base to it. With that down, now I'm going to go into the shade Maya, and I'm going to put that shade on dry first. What I like about this shade is that it has like a really thin, very finely milled texture to the actual shadow. This is what it looks like with a dry brush. I'm gonna see what the intensity looks like if I dampen the brush a little bit with some sunning spray. Let's see what it looks like dampened. Oh, wow, right? Wow. So you can kind of use it. So you can use it as like a light dust of color on the lid, or you can intensify it really easily with that dampened brush. I'm going to take a fluffy brush and I'm going to go into the shade Stone. And I'm just going to kind of sweep this in the crease. I'm going to go into the shade Vague and kind of sweep that right into that sparkling shade. Kind of placing the color down. Now I'm going to go into Tender. Now I'm going to go back to the shade Wit and kind of sweep that over top. And then I'm going to take the shade Ella. Okay, now I'm going to go back into Maya with a dampened brush and put it over top to kind of connect those colors. Okay, now I'm going to go into the shade Silhouette, which is the darkest shade in the palette. And I'm going to tap that right into the lash line. So I went ahead and finished another eye. Let's move on to the lower lash line. I'm going to go into Mesh. I'm going to take a flat tip brush and I'm going to go into Filigree. This one right here. But I'm going to dampen that shadow. So I'm going to put it on the brush and then dampen it. And I'm dampening it so that it doesn't get all over my concealer. Wish me luck, right? And then to finalize it, I'm going to go into the shade Whisper. And I'm going to put Whisper like right here on the inner corner. And then I think I'll also bring a tiny bit of that up here on the brow bone. Okay, so I went ahead and finished the rest of my makeup. This is the final look for look number 3. Let's go ahead and jump into the swatches and comparisons. Like I mentioned in the intro, I'm going to be swatching this palette next to a ton of other palettes, just so you guys can get an idea of the color story and how it compares to what is already out there. And then I will go ahead and jump into my final thoughts. So I will see you guys then. So I do hope that those swatches and comparisons were helpful. Let me go ahead and get into my final thoughts. I absolutely love this palette. This palette and this color story is absolutely right up my alley. And I fell madly in love with the Glam palette because this is one of those essential cool tone palettes that I can reach for when I'm, using other palettes. I know that I can always grab this palette and pull out some of those cool tones. Now, the I Need a Nude palette, like I mentioned in the intro, I kind of feel like this is a mixture between cool and warm tones. I would say this is more of a neutral palette because there are some warm shades in here. And some of them, maybe not all the way warm, but they lean warm, right? And so, I would definitely say this is more of a neutral tone, but this palette is stunning and I really love the new formulas in here. Here's the thing though, I don't know that this palette will be for everyone unless you absolutely love those topper shades. For example, if you have the Makeup by Mario palette and maybe these 3 shades are not your favorite shades to work with, I don't know that you'll fully love this new palette from Natasha Denona because there are so many of the shades in here that do have that kind of wet, kind of glossy look, and they're more to be like a topper a little bit more transparent and not necessarily a metallic or foiled shadow, right? So it's all going to depend on what you like. I personally am excited that she is testing the waters with this formula, only because I think she did a really good job with the formula itself. I feel like they're easy to apply. They're very buildable. They're kind of versatile where you can do a soft sweep of it and kind of give it a little bit of a glistening look, or you can wet the brush and kind of dampen it and really bring some sparkle to the actual eyelid. But what I like about these shades in this palette is that I will definitely be pairing it with the Nude palette because this palette has so many metallics and kind of shimmer shades. These topper shades in this I Need a Nude will be a really nice addition to wear with the Glam palette. So I can see myself reaching for this I Need a Nude palette to kind of pair with the Glam palette, and I love it. I think she did a fantastic job. I like the color story that she chose. I like the mattes that she provided in the palette. You got a really pretty dark shade right here that kind of has the perfect undertone to kind of match all of the tones in the palette. And I like that there are two different pinks. So you have one that's a little bit lighter, and then you have one that's a little bit darker, but they're not orange based. So meaning that, like, talking about the Make It by Mario palette, these, these lean a little bit more on the orange side. So you probably saw those in the swatch comparisons. The mattes in the Make It by Mario palette definitely have a little bit more of an orange base to them, or peachier base, if you will, versus these rosy tones in this palette. They don't. They're definitely more of just like a neutral rosy base color, and I love this palette. I kind of knew that I would from the overall look of it. I love what she chose as far as for the color, for the packaging. I think it's sleek, it's beautiful, and she did a fantastic job. Like, I don't have any complaints about this palette. I just haven't been able to find anything that I don't like about it. I do hope that the video was helpful. Sound off down below how many of you guys have bought this palette. What has been your experience? I'm so curious. Let us know in the comments section down below. Thank you guys for your patience and waiting for my review on this. I hated that I got sick, you guys, but I'm back on my vitamin C because even though I don't have kids in school anymore, I have a daughter in college, but nobody living in my house that's going to school. I have to remind myself that as soon as school starts, that's when all the, sicknesses happen. And so I am like back on my vitamin C. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Love you. Bye.